the landscape for the side.
Okay.
All right, so that's an alternate. Okay. And the reason it's an alternate, I'll explain further in a minute, but we had to reallocate some parking. So this is the design that they go with, they get the drainage calculations, so they're trying to get approval tonight based off the fact that they've got to work in the site plan. But this is the alternate.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. It's time to call to order the Mount Pleasant Municipal Plan Commission meeting. At this time, I'll ask Robert to give the invocation and Mr. Pugh to give the pledge. If everyone stand, please.
Would bow in, please. Dear gracious God, we come to you tonight, Lord, thankful for your many blessings. Thank you for watching over us and protecting each one of us in our travels here. Father, we ask that you bless this meeting tonight, bless everything that's said, that it be beneficial to all involved. The city of Mount Pleasant, we ask for your continued protection, guidance in our lives, lead and direct our steps. We give you thanks and praise in Jesus' name.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let the minutes reflect we do have enough present to have a quorum tonight. Item number 3 is approval of agenda for tonight. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion
I second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 4, approval of minutes, prior meeting, December the 8th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from December 8th.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, plat approvals.
There are none, Chairman.
Number 6, rezoning request.
There are none.
Number 7, annexation request.
Are none.
Number 8, I'll turn this over to you at this time.
Yes, sir, thank you. I'd like to thank all who's present, the board, members of the audience, as well as our engineer and Mr. Evers, who's on Zoom with us tonight. Tonight, we're here, the owner of Murray County Investments, represented by the developer, Evers Construction, and also Mr. Reddy, who's in the audience. They're requesting a site plan approval concerning properties. There's 2 properties involved tonight. 119 South Main Street, which is the Hamilton Building. You hear me refer to it as the Hamilton Building. It's the 2-story building over here by the vacant lot. And then the parking lot, the gravel parking area that's directly behind the grill. So that'll be the 2 properties we'll be discussing tonight. Reason for the request is for future development and reconstruction of the existing building, Hamilton Building, and the parking area for mixed use. This was brought before me a little while back, and the proposed use for the Hamilton Building, from my understanding at this point, I haven't got any construction documents, from my understanding at this point, is a mixed use facility. Have commercial on the bottom level, 6 loft apartments upstairs. The required parking, because of the size of the site on the Hamilton Building side, required parking cannot be met other than use of off-street parking, which is directly across the street, the gravel parking lot. That has to be updated as well, as it is a part of this building, required parking. So both of those are going to be under construction in the future if this is approved. I've spoken with Evers, Mr. Evers at length, Mr. Clint Evers, in relation to this project, and Mr. Ezel as well. The interior will be renovated under a building permit through my office here as well. So we'll be watching over the construction, and think that it'll be a great asset to the community if, once again, if it gets approved. There are some things that we addressed via comments, both the engineer and planning side, in relation to the project that you have before you tonight. all of them comments you do have in your pack. We don't have to specifically cover all of them, but I will speak to a couple tonight, if that's okay by the board.
That's
before
fine.
you asked. So I guess the first thing that I'd like to speak about is, all right, so you'll have an asphaltic surface over here behind the grill. Okay. You'll have concrete surface or asphaltic surface over for the required parking on the building side as well. The 6 loft apartments have to be on site. The required parking has to be on site. Zoning ordinance won't allow that to be anywhere. So the remainder of the required parking will be off-site, being over here, and that'll be for the retail side of the commercial businesses downstairs. So initially, when the site plan came through, we were looking at all different kinds of things. We were looking at changing the impermeable, the gravel lot to an asphalt surface, which we all know that that's going to shed additional flow. Then you got to look at mitigation through landscaping islands or drainage on the site or something like that. So the big parking lot over here was, is a concern of our engineer as well. Now, history shows that I know of, and maybe y'all are more aware, and if y'all are, just let me know. But I've never seen any flooding or standing water really in either of these areas. It's pretty much a flat surface. If you look at the contours, pretty much flat. So it would appear, and I'm not an engineer, once again, that the water is shedding appropriately. But you add asphalt to the mix, you're going to have a little more runoff. But according to the drainage calculations that we got from the engineer that is contracted with the owners and developer, you have those drainage calculations as well. And I would like for y'all to reference those, if you don't mind, while I'm going through those, just to kind of show you. They are from, yeah. So the very, once again, I'm not going to speak much to the engineering side of it, but I will give you off the first page there. Of course, it shows your pre-existing condition or post-development conditions. And if you flip over to the second page of that documentation, and this is speaking directly to the parking area, backside of the grill, the engineer here indicated that, interestingly enough, that looks like by his calculations that a on-site detention would not be necessary to encapsulate any additional watershed. He did recommend placing a catch basin in the southwest corner of the parking lot, connected to the existing break top, that's
Right.
located there. So he did indicate that on that specific parking lot. And then, of course, if you go, you have to go several pages over to where you got the letterhead, and it's speaking specifically to the building site. The conclusion there by the engineers is based on these results, attention to the proposed development is not required as well. Our engineer did look at this, and me and him spoke briefly about it, and he did address it. The calculations speak for themselves. They are what they are. We have no formal stormwater program in the city of Mount Pleasant. So his comments are in essence recommendations based on best management practices through TDEC. But all in all, the end result is that the drainage calculations speak appropriately to the drainage. I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the board. There was, some back and forth there with that. In relation to that. So, and historically speaking, I've never seen any flooding in that area. So the next thing is on the building site plan itself. We'll take a look at the alternate that is laying before y'all instead of what you received in the packet, if you don't mind. Yes, sir. Yeah. And if you'll look at the alternate plan, it shows that parking is actually contained within inside the perimeter of the parking lot. On the one that you received earlier in your pack, it indicated that that parking for the loft apartments that was running parallel to Jordan actually was going to have to back onto Jordan to leave their spot, which we felt was a concern, and also our zoning ordinance dictates that you can't back from a parking lot onto a street.
Right.
So we addressed that. And this alternate plan that you have before you, after speaking with the engineer and Mr. Evers, in relation to this alternate plan is the one that they will work towards. They just received those comments yesterday. We've done 2 reviews on this. So they just received those comments, the latest comments yesterday. So time to turn around new drainage calculations based off the changes in the design of the parking area are not available right now. But from my understanding, that would be the plan or similar plan like that addressing those parking concerns, which it cleared up the parking area quite a bit. You still have 2 handicap spots on the building site that's indicated. However, no handicap parking spots are on the adjacent lot. Now, that was another point of concern, and we addressed that in our comments initially on the first review or the second review, Mr. Ezel. ADA standards, and he can speak to this, Mr. Ezel's present on Zoom, can speak to this a little bit better than I can, but ADA standards, the reason we spoke and brought that up is because even though that parking lot is a part of the required parking, you have an excess of parking over there. You have above and beyond what the minimum required parking on the building site is. And that's still, any parking lot construction, from my understanding through ADA standards, has to meet the ADA requirements. So the bigger parking lot right now as it stands, and I haven't spoken to the developer or the engineer much about this outside of the comments, but from my understanding, there would be a need for required ADA parking on the parking lot, regardless or not if it's connected as a required parking, because you exceed the spaces required ADA standards. I know the number 1 calculation is 0 to 25. You got to have 1, and the further up you go in the parking stalls, the more ADA handicap parking you have to have. So that would be, you know, I think that necessitates maybe a view from the developer on that side as well. I don't know that they'd have any issue with that. Basically, it's just widening a couple of spots, and I think they've got a total of 60 something parking. 68 on the big parking lot. Okay. Alone, and I think the maximum for the required parking is 33.
Yeah.
So a portion of that would actually be attached to the Hamilton. But if we could speak a little bit about that, I mean, whoever the planning commission wants to talk about, that would be great. But that was really our only concern. So they've addressed the majority of the planning comments. The draft that you have in front of you, I didn't get a chance to talk to you, Ms. Granberry, so the draft, if you could point that out to her.
Right there.
No, I'm sorry, the draft for the conveyance of the,
Parking lot.
not sure where it's at.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right.
So that is a draft that's drawn up by the owner's attorney. And once again, it is just a draft, but that does not have to be required right now. It's required at the certificate of occupancy. So
But does that actually meet our code
conveying that property over, is that what you're saying?
as a lease as opposed to ownership? I mean, it strictly says in the code it's possession and ownership.
Possession and ownership.
And ownership. It doesn't
Yeah.
say.
And
perpetual lease.
it also, if you look at that, I think if the planning commission determines that that has been established, I think the ownership and the lease can both work as long as it's conveyed in record through a legal document. That's my understanding.
Reading the lease, it's only for 20 years and renew it 20 years, so that's not like forever.
Not in perpetuity?
Right.
Okay. And a representative for the owner, I believe, is here tonight, so he could probably speak to that as well, if that's a question that, concern, yes, sir. Most certainly. But that is a draft at this point in time, so it's still a document that is a working document, so want the planning commission to kind of keep that in mind as well. But most of the other concerns were addressed by Mr. Ezel and by Mr. Evers that we had. You know, on the engine, on the last comment, I think, from Mr. Black, on the engineer's comments, the very last one, he mentioned something to the fact that, you know, mitigation through more landscaping or even not having all of that parking lot surfaced.
Yeah.
Would help. But once again, the drainage calculations, he did verify the drainage calculations do speak for themselves. He just knows, as all of us are aware, that we've had problems with flooding, not specifically in that area,
Right.
but just this last year, we had several inundations of waterfall that contributed a lot to some flooding issues that we had further down the street, north and south of us, so.
Robert, a quick question. The stormwater and the drainage calculations that you talk about, isn't that ultimately the state that's going to approve that? Like the SWIP?
Well, it has to reach over a certain acreage, and I think this actually does,
Okay,
yeah.
so the state does,
We were okay under
Come on.
Lyndon or Clint want to jump in here, either one, because of the size of the lots, we're just over that acre, but when you include the actual building on the lot, that drops us back below that acre, so we would not be pursuing the state SWIP
Yes,
on this particular project.
and that's by law.
because of the size of the lot.
That's
Okay.
in any development, yes, ma'am. It has to exceed an acre, before
The
the state
state's
steps
involved.
in and says that the SWIP is required.
Okay.
So that's another reason that we kind of looked at the, stormwater.
Thank you.
Even though we don't have a formal stormwater program, once again, these are recommendations.
Right.
But they do have, they've met our landscaping intent, you know, if that suffices for the planning commission, then that would, you know, negate, according to the drainage calculations that the engineer provided, negate any excess watershed that might create an issue with those islands and those landscaped islands that they have. And then, even on the redesign on the alternate plan, they're talking about maybe even including some permeable paving. I think Mr. Evers had spoke of that earlier during the conversation. Once again, that's an alternate design, and that was just put together just recently, based off of our concerns for the parking. And we're satisfied that it's a good development. It's just questionable, maybe to the planning commission. In our eyes, it was questionable, certainly the drainage aspect of it. But they provided documentation from an engineer that put his name and did the work to associate that back to appropriate mitigation for any drainage there. So I think, you know, going forward tonight, the owner would request that the site plan be approved through this board, just so the process can actually get started. They really can't do anything with the building until they start working on the site, knowing that alternate design would come in and have to go, it would come back before us, not necessarily the planning commission, but it would come back before us.
For your office.
For a construction document review, basically, just to kind of see that everything's in line with what they're presenting as an alternate, and that it still satisfies the need or the requirements of the zone.
So one of the things right now that's only concern to us is there's some parking spaces for the handicap. And then the other.
That's correct, yes, sir. I mean, any parking lot that I'm aware of by law has to meet ADA standards regardless, or whether it's tied up with the.
What about, the ramp from the existing building or something,
That's, yes, you speak to that. One suggestion from us for the establishment of any handicap parking would be as close proximity to the Rippey's building as possible to have access to that sidewalk.
Is there a current crosswalk there?
There is, yes,
I
sir.
was thinking it was.
There's a current crosswalk there is. But that would be our recommendation for any handicap parking on that specific lot to be as closely related to the Rippey building. So that way it puts you right there next to
Yeah, it's true.
the crosswalk and the sidewalks.
That's a good idea.
Sure. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I got as far as talking about drainage, I was looking at with this new design with the parking lot, putting this curb and gutter in, it looks like it's gonna trap water. So they'd have to, before it was just gonna drain out to Jordan Avenue, now
That's
they're
correct.
putting a 6-inch curb in, so all the water's draining that direction. So they'll have to accommodate, put a curb cut in to.
There's water drain on that, yes, sir.
Same
You talking
thing.
about on the island on the Georgia side?
I am.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a landscaped aisle as well, so, yeah, but I understand what you're saying, curb cut or something there.
But if it's gonna drain down Jordan, it's gonna go straight down that hill where we have all the flooding at.
Goes down there now.
Yeah, there's nothing to stop it.
I know.
There's nothing to stop it now. I mean, it's,
Yeah, and that was, one of our concerns is you're changing the surface. But according to, of course, let me back up just a second. Okay, so we haven't had the engineer that provided the drainage calculations on the original design. He hasn't looked at this new design, to my knowledge. No. Okay, so he may look at it and say that, here's something that we need to look at. So just keep that in mind. The same engineer that provided the documentation already looked at the original design, not the new design.
Because, I mean, it does drain down there now, but when you're talking about making a smooth surface, it's gonna drain more.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That's my concern, for the
And-
neighborhood down there. Because, I mean, they already, between the creek and running down there, they're always underwater.
And that'll be conveyed to the new drainage hydraulic report from the engineer of record for the stormwater.
There's no underground storm drainage if they could do like underground detention or if they could try to.
not in that area there, is it?
Not in that area, no, sir.
I think so.
I don't know that I would trust anything that's underground.
I actually really think that, it's permeable pavement or additional landscaping, might offset some of. concerns.
Actually, you should slow some of it down, I would think.
Yes.
Wouldn't it, John? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it should.
Yeah.
I mean, it's-
So, but that, like I said, we're
And actually,
changing.
what.
That's what the
Mr. Pugh-
calculations show.
Yeah,
I
I'd say
mean,
what
anyway,
Mr. Pugh was
but
talking about,
Yeah.
it being the area to traffic into and stuff, but,
Yeah, the
that,
same thing's happening on the big parking lot too.
yeah.
Because they're putting that curved island around, it's just gonna create without some kind of curve cuts, it's gonna trap the water.
And those are all good concerns, and I'm glad we have, everybody here that can speak to those. So, Mr. Evers, Mr. Ezel, or Mr. Evers, or Mr. Reddy, they're all available for the board tonight with these concerns. So, I, recommend that we make use of them while we've got them. As far as, if y'all have any questions concerning that, because what'll happen is if y'all give this approval, then we will roll forward, but we're still gonna have to take a step back on the building site specifically. and speak to the-
Understand.
Will it affect that bus stop pavilion that's already there on
Did the trolley stop?
It
Mm,
appears
very-
as if that it will, but I haven't spoke to anybody in specific on how they're gonna handle that. trolley stop there. And the other gentlemen that are here tonight may have some light that they can shed on that. I'm sure it's been talked about by them. I just haven't had a one-on-one conversation with them. But, you know, we do have the trolley stop there.
You know, if one of them's willing to speak, you know,
Okay.
on the current issue, and let's get it behind us. And,
Sure, I mean, I'll just say two things. In regards to the trolley stop, I think
Mr. Brady, you come up here.
biggest issue would be that we would have to take down construction, but we would reinstall it. And then to your question on the lease agreement, I just had in my hands recently too, but if I'm reading it correctly, item number 3 establishes a 40-year lease, and then the next one is 2 consecutive 20-year renewals. And Mr. Evers and Mr. Izzo actually can speak more intelligently for most of the details of the project than I can, but if there are any other questions, we just want to do the right thing.
yeah.
I think we will, good faith, whatever disruption we have, make it better.
Oh, I agree. I do.
And in like any construction project, there's painful periods of time.
Yeah.
There may be some issues with things bigger than the trolley stop, but we'll certainly.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
Do y'all have a specified laydown yard y'all gonna locate your stuff on?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Like a laydown yard to supply?
Equipment and stuff that you're gonna have to have on.
Yes, sir, that would be essentially the area, what we would use for that would be I'm trying to get my bearings here. That would be to the east of the building between it and there's another older warehouse.
It's a big
building
area
here.
in behind it back there.
We're not anticipating just a ton of equipment on site as far as the construction inside the building goes. For the most part, we're not really cutting much grade out anywhere. The grades that are existing now are pretty close to what they're going to be. Maybe a little bit of small dozer work, but we're probably mostly looking at skid steers and that kind of thing. But no, we would establish on the property of the building.
Actually, it's the area in behind it, more or less, in the alley back there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Ryan,
yeah.
I think I can speak to that, if you guys can hear me. We're also planning on, fencing in that area and protecting the sidewalk, for any material storage that we're gonna have, which is mostly, interior build out. So we're not anticipating lay down to be as big a deal, certainly as it would be if we were erecting structural steel or pouring concrete for a slab or elevated deck.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
And just to echo the point on the drainage calculation, we certainly are going into this alternate site plan well aware that we've got to meet the drainage calculations and not be creating excess runoff as to what's already there. So we'll try to get that accomplished here in the next couple of days, and we've already spoken with the civil engineer about it, kicked around some ideas to handle it in this alternate site plan, but with just a few more days, I think we'll tackle that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Only other question I have is on your electrical light poles. You have islands in the large parking lot. You have islands, and you have light poles that are not within the islands. Is that something that we could look at, having light poles within the islands and not?
Within the islands and not outside the islands?
Yeah. Are we?
Sure, I'm sure it is. I'm trying to pull that up and refresh my memory.
I know that looks like they got an island every 6 park space. Is that based on our requirements?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the lighting has met the requirement, for sure.
I'm sorry, I can't pull up the electrical drawings. I will, and if that's a note that the commission wants to make to Robert, if you'll pass that note along to us, we can certainly alter that electrical design, make sure we capture those in the islands. I actually thought that they were, but I can't see the drawing.
Yeah, they probably need to be in the island and get hit, yeah. I see
Don't
that.
make sense
Yeah,
to me.
no, just set them out in the middle. Mhm. Most time they are, like if they set up,
They are, I know he's got them spaced out to meet his lighting
Yeah.
requirement, but
most time they're setting up in the island.
Put it in top of the island,
yeah, you won't get it.
Yes. I'm really bagging over stuff, you're right.
Everybody.
Thank God for backup cameras.
All right.
So is that something that the board, I guess, so whatever your ruling is gonna be, just clarify any conditional
On the
approval,
electric lights?
on the lights, on handicap parking, if that's gonna, need to be addressed as far as the, big parking lot. I just want y'all to clarify in your motion.
Well, the handicap parking is gonna have to be required, but I mean, the island, we was just saying that it would be not as dangerous, you know, to back into if they're inside the island instead of sitting on the outside of it.
Yeah, I'm just asking that, when that motion comes forward, wherever that motion may be, that includes.
So it's in the minutes?
That include wording,
Good.
so we can reflect back
Very
on it
good.
and make for sure that it's attached to the site plan.
They were also asking for an exemption from the irrigation requirements also, correct?
That's correct, yes,
Okay.
sir. They're asking for an exception on that as well.
Can you
and-
speak on that? Can you speak on that?
Yes, sir. Okay, so, they are asking basically, this planning commission for a waiver from the irrigation requirements. Irrigation is required anytime landscaping is put in place by our new zoning ordinance. However, you can offset that if you have, a accessible hydrant within, I want to say it's 100 feet of any bed. I know the hydrant on the building itself would suffice on the building site. I can't speak to any specific hydrants that are located on the big parking lot of the landscape. So that might be something that y'all consider as well. I don't know of any wall hydrants or anything that's located in close proximity to any of the parking islands over there. And basically, that's in there so that we know that that plant material is going to be taken care of for the lifetime, either through an irrigation or through a serviceable connection to a water source, provide that needed.
We have water source there because we used to use it during our,
But
Festival.
it wouldn't be using the city's water source.
Shouldn't be.
Is that the one that's on site, is the city's water
Yeah.
source?
I think you're talking about for
where
the
they had the festival and stuff
Mhm.
like
That's
that.
the city.
Yeah.
So do you know if there's any?
Yeah, well, I don't know about the water. I can say that it's going to be a sizable investment in the landscape. And I've been in the landscape business for 36 years, and my experience has been that if you can rely for the first years, as far as what irrigation could potentially do, but again, we do not want anything. That's our life. It would cost more to replace it all. We're gonna do everything.
So to speak to the parking lot and the zoning ordinance, there is a requirement for it to be, I think, without looking at the zoning ordinance, within 100 feet of that landscaped area. The only one that would be questionable would be the one parking lot behind the grill. But as you heard Mr. Redding speak, it's in their best interest to keep that landscape live and maintained throughout the lifetime. But on this side, on the building side, they would certainly meet that 100-foot requirement versus the irrigation. But that is that's one of y'all's options that y'all have available to you as a planning commission, to waive those requirements based on findings and fact that occurred here, just from what you've heard. And then also the fact that you do have a water source in that proximity on the building side, maybe not necessarily on the parking lot.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion from the board?
What does that mean on the big parking lot side? Does that mean that they'll have to, if they don't put in an irrigation system, do they have to put in a faucet, section, in a couple of places to be within that 100 feet?
Or we could exempt them from all of it.
You could, yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the two options basically, that you would have as the board. Our zoning text says that, either you have a water source that's within 100 feet of the landscaping, or you have irrigation. The board can exempt from that irrigation requirement and the need for a water source in location, if y'all choose to go that route. That's an item that it's one of those items that the planning commission has the authority to work with.
So from a city standpoint, if it starts looking bad 2 years into it, what is our, what do we do then?
Pray for rain.
I mean, in all honesty, the only time that it would be of a concern as far as me, my office, would be through property maintenance. And property maintenance, you couldn't even address it because it's on property that necessarily wouldn't be affecting safety or health of anybody else. So I couldn't tell them, hey, you probably need to water those that are dying.
Oh, that's understandable then, yeah.
There's nothing that I could do.
Yeah, it is, that
For sure,
is.
yeah, there's nothing I could do.
So if they decide to stop maintaining it, we're stuck with it, however it looks.
That,
I'm just not saying they will, but
Yes.
that's one of the things that could happen.
yes, if the exemption is allowed by this board, or if the exception is allowed by this board to waive those watering requirements, irrigation requirements, or water source requirements, then the end result, if somebody was to walk away from the development, then yes.
Did you say, was the handicap ramp gonna be coming off the parking lot?
I don't know that there's necessarily a handicap ramp coming off the parking lot behind the grill right now. I do know that, if I'm not mistaken, just thinking about the site, I want to say
On
that
the site, on the site, since they all gonna have to have handicap parking, is it gonna be, since the parking is across the street, then you're gonna need handicap access for them to come across that.
Are you talking about the crosswalk?
Yeah.
The
It is.
crosswalk,
It's a ramp,
Yeah.
Crosswalk has a ramp.
Mhm.
Yeah.
so you do have a ramp there. And
I mean,
then,
it's gonna remain there, that's what I'm saying.
yes, ma'am,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, they.
And then you have two additional parking spots on building site.
Okay.
But there's none shown on the big parking lots.
For the other side, for the apartments, right?
No, ma'am, that's handicap parking that's required.
Okay.
Yeah, those two are gonna be for
Yeah,
the
that's-
apartments,
Yeah.
the on site. Across the street's gonna be commercial.
And he just said it was gonna be for them too.
Well, the handicap,
Handicap.
handicap is required as part of the parking
Okay.
calculation that they have.
So many parking spaces.
But they have excess parking
Right.
on the big parking lot,
Right.
which I believe ADA standards would call out that they would need to address handicap parking on that side as well.
Yeah. Okay. No further discussion. Do I hear a motion?
I'll give it a shot.
I can get it all together.
I make a motion that we accept their site plan as long as, contingent upon them following the ADA standards for handicap spots for all parking lots. They put those lights in the islands instead of not. And that we waive the irrigation system requirement.
I have a motion before me. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second. We want to do a roll call vote on this, please?
You want me to call it?
Please, if you don't mind.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Granberry?
Waiving irrigation, that does not mean waiving the water, right? It does not, it does.
Waiving irrigation means you don't, you're basically giving an exception to the,
Water asset.
water aspect of it.
Not for the runoff, just for the,
Not for the water, not for the.
Water in the
drainage,
plants.
Just the
Water in the
water in the plants, underground irrigation.
You mentioned that you could require water being within a certain number of feet, but
100 feet, that's
Yeah.
correct.
you're waiving the irrigation underground. I would,
I vote yes to waiving irrigation underground, but water at 100 feet, yes.
that
Is that
change in the
your-
motion?
That was
That's
not a
not on,
motion.
that's not on the motion. The motion before us is to waive the,
Okay, then no.
okay.
Yes.
Mr. Pugh? Mr. Marshall?
Yes,
Ms. Graham? Mr. Hunter?
yes.
motion carries. Number 9, old business.
There is none.
Number 10 is other business. At this time is the election of a chairman, vice chairman, and a secretary before the board tonight. So at this time, the floor is open for nomination for chairman.
I nominate Doug Marshall.
I second it.
I have a nomination for Doug Marshall and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Vice chairman?
Who seconded that motion? I'm sorry.
Jennifer.
Jennifer?
Okay, thank you. The chairman, and now we're on vice chairman. I apologize.
That was Eric.
It's vacant.
Yeah, it was,
Okay.
it was vacant. I nominate John Hunter as vice chairman.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I have a nomination for the secretary,
Is that currently Jennifer?
Jennifer,
It is.
yes.
A big job.
Yeah, I nominate Jennifer.
I second it. All those opposed? Motion carries. Board staff comments?
There are none.
Wasn't no citizens, no one signed up for citizens' comments?
Okay, if you don't mind, just sign it.
I did.
Thank you.
13, motion for adjournment. Second?
I'll second.
So be. Good evening. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, go. You can keep that safe.
I appreciate it. My best to play Thursday. Thanks, sir.